Today I'm going to show you how to make this kimono jacket. It has an applique on the back of a moon and a sun. And it has all this painting and even fringe. It's nice and loose. So I'm going to tell you how to make the kimono portion and then how to do the painting and how to do the applique. And the fringe is just sewn along pretty basic. Today we're making a kimono jacket. This is just black cotton. I'm going to show you how to make the basic jacket, and then we're going to make it a little bit more special with some fabric paint and an applique. So this is just fabric that the selvages are all over here, and that's where the ends or the edges of the fabric are. And this is the cut end down here. And there's a fold up here and two folds over here. So this is going to be the middle, and this is going to be the sides. So what we're going to do is measure 12 inches, maybe 13, give it a little bit more wiggle room, from the top folds up here, which will be the shoulder. This is my quilting roller. I'm just going to flip it up and mark that. Let's see, where are we going to make this? Let's do 14 because I'm going to put a French seam in there. So all I'm doing is measuring straight across here. So that's just 6 inches. So I have all this penned, but what I'm actually going to do is widen it a little bit to make it more flowy at the bottom. Together. Going to cut through one of these folds. So we have one fold for the back and one for the front. And we're going to cut from the bottom here up to the top up there, but not all the way back down. And this is just going to open up the front. So I have front and back lined up for this side. And all you want to do is pin along. And you can use clips if you want, or you can pin along the edge like that, or inwards like this to make it easier to take out as you're sewing. Either way is fine. I have both of the sides pinned, so there's a front and back for each side. And what I'm going to do next is go down straight seam and go around the curve. It's going to be about 1/4 inch from the edge, and this is the right side, and the wrong side is actually inside. And you know, if you've ever sewn before, normally you do it right sides together, but we're doing a French seam, so all of the raw edges will be encased. I will come back when I've done that and then show you how to do the next part of the French seam. So I have one side done with the French seam, and the other side is just, and you'll notice the difference is this one is flipped and this one is not. So, like I mentioned, we're going to go up, I'm going to make sure you see it, 1/4 inch from the edge. And when you get to the corner though, because we're going to be flipping it the other direction, to make it easy to turn, you're just going to clip it. But you want to make sure you don't cut through the stitching there. And then what you're going to do is flip that seam back the other direction. I'd say it's probably about, not even 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit more than 1/4, like 3/5 of an inch away from your previous seam you're going to cut. Now, if you really new to doing French seams, or you just haven't done them in a long time, you want to cut this back some. Like if you made that way too thick, you can cut it back. That'll just make it easier for the next step. So you're going to flip this. This is the outside, and this is the inside. So you see I have that seam. This is going to be the inside. And what a French seam does is encase all of those raw edges, so there isn't a chance that it's going to fray, and it's very unlikely to come undone. So I did that here. Let's see, this is the back. So you have this, which isn't sewn yet, and then this that is. And you can just take it to the iron and make it all flat. So you're just stitching down there. When you get to the armpit area, I like to reinforce that just to make sure it really stays there. So it's just a bunch of back stitching. And make sure you back stitch at the front and the end as you're stitching. So that's what I'm going to do the other side. And then we're going to do our hems. And then we'll get to the extra fun part. Pressing that back. I'm going to go all around and do that. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what the next part would be. It's just to fold it back one more time. Again, what we want to do is entrap all of those raw edges. We don't want any fraying, as it's going to get a lot of wear. So we're just pushing that back and holding it there. A few seconds isn't going to hurt anything. And then if you want it more secure, of course the folds are really nice and they're hot. You can use straight pins. Again, I recommend going along the length of it to keep them really in there. And that kind of protects your skin from the really pokey parts. Or the pin tip. So we have that. So we're going to go all around and do that. I don't really want to bore you with that. For the bottom though, take that pin out. What we're going to do is make sure this is all pressed, this French seam. And you can go through the whole thing later and do that. So we're going to fold it up. I make this a little chunkier than the other one. So it's a little bit more sturdy. We're going to make sure that we're capturing that in there. You can do it one at a time, or you can do both. So I have this seam pointed that direction. You want to make sure the opposite one is also pointed inwards. Are easier to access if you turn them inside out than the correct way. And they're going to be a little bit harder to iron because they're a smaller circle. But just like doing the hem around the front of the neck, they don't need to be super thick. If you had super long ones, you can make it a little thicker, but these aren't going to get rubbed at the cuff as much as something really long. So you just can go around, do the first pass, flip it back, and do the second pass. It doesn't really matter like the measurement, maybe a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch, just eyeballing it. You could definitely use the clear ruler and make it precise if you want it. It's a little hard to see on camera. So same thing as before, you want to throw a straight pin in there, and same thing as going on the bottom. When you get to the seam, you want to make sure it's pressed in the same direction. So this one is pressed in that way. You want to make sure this is also pressed in the same direction, because otherwise when you wear it, the seam's going to wiggle back and forth, and it will be the most annoying thing about wearing this piece, and you will hate it. Trust me, save yourself some grief later. So you're going to iron that nice, and then you can do your 2 fold back. You can do one at a time or all at the same time. It doesn't really matter. You do that for do the hem for all around, do the hem for the bottom, and hem for the sleeves. And then at the sewing machine, all you're gonna do is sew close to that fold. And you can either make 1 pass or 2 pass. You can do a blind hem if you want, which is a little trickier. It's a certain stitch, but everyone may not have that on their machine. And it may not be the easiest thing for everyone to do. And trust that no one's gonna care whether you have noticeable top stitching or not. Top stitching is simply just lengthening the stitch on your machine by just a smidge. Like if your standard on your machine is a 2.5, you can put it at a 3.5. So not quite a basting stitch, a little bit longer than a regular stitch, but not as long as a basting stitch. And that's just kind of decorative stitching. It's not there for structure, like the side seams are. It's there just to kind of tack down the fabric for regular wearability. And so that kind of makes the basic kimono, right? So after we've done the stitching, we're going to come back and we're going to go over doing the applique on the back. But before we do the applique, we're going to give this thing some stars. And you'll see what I mean in a little bit. I've created the kimono. All of it is done being sewn. What I'm going to do next is create my own fabric print on it. Now, you could do this before you did your sewing, but I wanted to test the fit and everything, make sure I got it right before I committed to painting. Pippi, hopefully, will excuse herself, but this is non-toxic, so if this gets on the cats who love fabric, it'll be okay. This is Tulip Soft. It's very flexible. It works well on fabric. It dries and it's not stiff. And excuse these 2 cats, I cannot help it. This is metallic and this is gold. This is all from metallics and this is platinum. Cats! This is matte and it's glacier white. I like the mattes and the metallics the best. And also this is just what I have in hand. So I'm going to give it a good shake because it's more liquidy. And I'm basically going to do the same thing with each of the colors. So I'm going to pull these off to the side. I'm just using a paper plate, cheap and biodegradable. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to this. And not too much because it's too liquidy that it really soaks into the fabric and just kind of dissipates. Meaning that the color doesn't show up. This brush is a little stiff. I might switch out to a different brush, but all you're doing is run your finger on here. Just like this. You can see my finger is white. And I've done a previous video that shows how to splatter paint. And I'll link to that one. That's a hat. And actually my tripod has splatter painting all over it from that project. So what we're basically doing for this particular design is, obviously it's going to be random, but we're emulating stars. Because the idea of this is to look like, you know, wizardy and celestial. The applique we're going to put on the back is going to be a sun and a moon. So I thought this was a good design to put over here. And it doesn't matter whether there's big globs like this or not. Some of them we're going to turn into more defined stars. A bit like the depiction of a North Star at Christmas. We need to make the applique for the back of the jacket. So what I have is a square of cotton, and this has kind of a craggly pattern on it. This is a piece of stick, which I've cut to about the size of that. I'm using this paper plate as our circle template, so we don't need that right now. But that gave a good size of fabric we need. This is a piece of parchment paper. It can help us with our fusing. I have the iron set to cotton with the steam off. Put that on there. And all I'm going to do is iron right onto the stick. Fabric has cooled for a couple minutes. you should be able to peel it right off. And you'll have the stick adhering to the back. And I went ahead and made a second piece that will be for the sun. So we need to mark and cut out the circles for the moon and the sun. So I just have a paper plate on here, and all I can do is take a pen or a piece of chalk and just draw around. Both the layers pinned all together. Now I mentioned the sun was going to be bigger than the moon, but it won't be from the circle. It'll actually be from spikes that we have around it. So we want our lovely moon to be looking onto our sun a little bit, as if it is smiling at her. So I'm just looking at this and deciding where I kind of like the craggly pattern. There's not much towards the center, but it is kind of more around the edge.
In a slumber, you were only.
I have my piece of fabric cut as a strip and a piece of stick sitting on top of it. We're going to take that same piece of parchment paper and layer it straight back over. And we still have our iron on cotton and dry. And give this a nice little press.
Only sleeping. Finding yourself crowded.
Cut all the spikes for the sun. We have the background for the sun and the moon all cut out. So what we need to do now is fuse all of this to the back of the jacket.
And you can't lose the knot around your hands, a soft and silent cell. The waves are above your head. They gathered and melted and lifted to the size of a mountain right above your head.
I wanted to show you the details on the back of this jacket, show you kind of the final steps. So hopefully you'll be able to see that. For the applique, after it's all ironed on, you want to use a zigzag stitch that's close together but about average in width. And you make it a little wider if you feel like you need to. So you just go back and forth and really carefully around all the curves. And I gave the moon a little bit of an eye. You can do it with paint or with stitching, whatever you feel comfortable with. The fringe that I added on there, see if I can show you that, is just stitched on with the little band of the fringe. This fringe comes in a strip, and after it's all sewn on, you pull the little braiding out of the bottom, the little chain stitch, I should say. Then everything goes together. So you can see the stars that I did that are all accented. You can see the applique and all the details. This is what the neck looks like with the bias tape on there. It goes down the majority of the neck, and the bias tape folds over and goes onto the previous stitching on there. There are a lot of tutorials that show how to make kimonos, but none of them included this step. But I guess having that fancy degree knows what to do there. I wanted to show you what the full kimono looks like. So you can see the fringe moving around. And here's the full back of it, where you can see the entire applique. So you get nice loose cut on this. It'll fit a bunch of sizes. So if you guys have any questions or comments about this tutorial or want to make your own kimono, feel free to leave them below. I hope you guys have a wonderful crafty day and happy witchcrafts. Bye.
If only you could let it go, just for